You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
The only station that matters.
If you could call it a station, actually, the name of the station is
ROCKFLUX Live.
And that ends far too quickly. And away we go. Here I am, 6:11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The countdown to eternity. Countdown to when we set the clocks back this coming weekend on this Sunday the 7th. Today is the 2nd, and as the title of this show states, November 2nd, vote GOAT for those who will be foolish enough to venture out and do this and participate in this exercise in futility. Vote, I'd write in vote GOAT, GOAT. I still don't know why. Like I say, the reason the whole thing is fraudulent and a joke and an exercise in futility to me is because, A, there's an easier way and a legitimate way of doing it that is so frickin' obvious. All right? That it's pathetic. So that they want to maintain some sort of corruption and rigging to begin with. I'm not going to waste a lot of time on this, but who knows? I mean, I'll talk about it just briefly. And the idea is, yeah, it is like I have the same shirt on. I had to watch myself. See, these are celebrity costumes. No, celebrity outfits. Show clothes, showbiz clothes. No, I only wear it for 2 hours. So I'll wear it. So sometimes I accidentally pull a different one off the rack. I have clothes for these shows that I don't normally wear. You dig? No, but dig this, because, all right, everybody has, everywhere you go, like yesterday, I was asked for my date of birth several times. Just for the sake of it, the continuing saga. Yesterday, I found out that I was shorted so many of these amoxicillin pills that I was taking for the tooth, right? So I called the pharmacy, and they were, dealt with it and gave me, the amount of pills that I was shorted. But to go down there, even on the phone, they said, "What's your date of birth?" And then they said, "All you'll have to do is when you come down, we'll just put it in a bag for you. It won't be separate, rung up, and just tell them just give them your date of birth, your name and date of birth." Right. And then I had gotten a letter from my insurance company just randomly, because I have a doctor's appointment this week, just happened to have one, like I normally schedule one, that my doctor, who I suspected, is retiring. And he's no longer in the program, which means I would have to pay for a doctor visit over there that I have tomorrow. Right? I'm like, bang, I'm like fixing this, trying to secure this thing on my porch so I could have privacy from this prying eyes of this blabbermouth, psychotic, busybody, neighbor. And the mailman comes, delivers a piece of junk mail and this letter from my medical thing. And I go and I read it, and it says, as of October something, this guy's no longer your doctor's no longer. You're telling me in November, 2 days before, less than 2 days before my visit, right? So I called their concierge service, and of course they ask you your date of birth, right? Anyway, the whole thing got settled. It was, so I could still go to the same, just different doctor, same building. It's all right. It's fine. It's next door to me. Excuse me. So, and I know I was, and I was called to make an appointment at an oral surgeon, okay? Another oral surgeon. Remember I said I had to deal with these doctors for those following this saga, okay? The saga of the tooth, right? First of all, let me get rid of this. The metal fell out, right? And then eventually I have to deal with this. And I know this is like very disturbing to many people. But anyway, so I had to call an oral surgeon so I can get, deal with this thing. All right. And we'll stick back with this title card because this is what this is about. And, I called and I give my name. They say, well, what's your date of birth? Right. And sometimes they ask you for your last 4 digits of your social. Right. That's how they say it. Your social. Last 4 digits of your social. Date of birth. Right. And then, of course, we all have a PIN number. Right. Right. We go use our ATM card at the supermarket or an ATM machine. Right. So it's your, So, okay, this is why, like I say, this is Occam's razor stuff again. All right. So you're going to this place, some gymnasium, some room, some place they've set up as some kind of temporary voting place. Like last year they had those places, these rooms, and these people were holding up cardboard through the glass. Like, why? Right? I'm not talking either way about this. I'm saying, but why? Why would you? And people were like, apart from the people who were like, had some skin in the game, so to speak, but the rest of the people just accepted that. They're going like, they're hiding, right? Why are you putting the cardboard up? I mean, you could almost find an excuse for saying why you did stuff at 3 a.m. Okay, that's fine. I mean, it's weird, but it could be rationalized, right? Yeah, But what was the idea of hiding in these places, right? Or not letting people in and stuff. Okay, so there's all this highly suspect activity that occurs, right? The bureaucrats run this, like the local party bosses are usually election boards and stuff like that. People don't even understand the concept of bureaucracy and how it's into all the local levels. It's like, that guy said, former Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill said, all politics is local. He used the word is, all politics is local. And it's true, right? Because it's the local, election people, officials, these weird things people call people officials and, But anyway, so that's number one, that there's this bureaucracy, election boards, shady bureaucrats, people doing things under cover of the night or secretly, right? If this was open, it should just be, visual. There should be, the local cable channel, which a lot of people don't know this. See, I'm going to tell you how it would work in an ideal system that could be implemented within literally like a couple days. All right. Okay. And then it would be totally transparent and everyone would know what was going on. All the cable companies, and you may have it depends on the region you lived in. They've gotten rid of a lot of this. But it used to be called public access TV. But there's channels in a lot of areas that some you may or may not have them because everything's like gotten really weird now. Like people aren't following the rules that were the games, the rules like the media and the cable companies and even and internet companies, big tech, and stuff. there used to be rules laid down, like equal access. So if I were on ABC this morning, and I was talking about, I have this opinion about a certain thing, then they, because they were granted this license that gives them the ability to have made billions of dollars on the public airways, right? Taxpayers, the people's airways. See, people forget that. Like technically you own ABC's. ABC's is on your is trespass, is on your property. And yet they throw commercials at you, and the cable company charges you, unless you've got access through an antenna, but it's the public airwaves, right? And so it used to be set up, and I know this because I've been a broadcaster since I was in high school. All right, among all these other things. I'm not going to rattle off the laundry list of things I've done over the course of my life. But I do know broadcasting, and having been a general manager, I've had to be very, aware of the rules. And when I was there, in my day, before they started meddling, fiddling, and big tech and all these people lobbied to, some of it has been changed by the FCC, through various lobbyists and all that stuff, and congressional interference and this kind of crap. A lot of it's just ignored, though. In other words, it's like big tech, for example, is in violation of the First Amendment, their terms of service, but they don't care. Their attitude is that you need us, so don't mess with us, man. Yesterday I was talking about, elements of the good things that could come from, Meta, formerly Facebook and stuff. But I mean, at the same time, they are basically go to Congress and other politicians and the people's representatives, which they really are, right? And they say, screw you. Right? We're going to come up with terms of service. It's like we're going to create our own rule book, our own Bill of Rights. And your Bill of Rights, doesn't mean anything. So the fact that the First Amendment says Congress shall pass no law abridging, right? The free speech, basically, right? And the freedom to assemble and, et cetera. And the right to address, grievances with your government. And that's clear, and it's the First Amendment, blah, blah, blah. But it's the key words it begins with those, it's like this big letters, Congress shall make no law. Now, Congress is the official lawmaking body, right? That's how the Constitution's set up, right? On this election day, this is the kind of stuff talk about, right? The structure of how it works. So bodies like the FCC, the FDA, right? Or whatever, right? Military contractors even, who are subcontracted by the Pentagon and whatever. They're nothing. You see? They're not, basically tasked and given the authority to make laws. Yeah, right? The FCC cannot make a law. The FCC can be tasked with, enforce, these, just like the FBI and stuff like that, DOJ or whatever. They can be tasked with enforcing laws, right? Or carrying out, mandates, various things that come from this lawmaking body, which is supposed to be comprised of representatives of you, the people, right? And again, the media, we talk about freedom of the press. The freedom of the press was written at a time when Ben Franklin and, Thomas Paine and people were publishing, Poor Richard's Almanac and Common Sense, Freedom and Papers and little almanac, all these kinds of things. So you had freedom of the press, newspapers to write, which are basically just sheets. Most of them were one-sheeters, because of the way the printing presses worked back then. You might have somebody who had got some really big sheets of paper and then folded it in half, and it looked like it was a 4-pager, right? Coffee. So the FCC, doesn't have the right, and the media, broadcast media, for example, they're using the public airwaves. So they're running these commercial operations, all right, and acting as if they're like, somehow that freedom of the press somehow has empowered them, like people call the fourth estate type of thing. As if they've been empowered as like a fourth branch of government, but they're not. They're not government. They're nobodies. All right? I'm a broadcaster right now. Okay? All right? And I have the freedom to do this. Okay? But I'm not free because big tech is interfering and is providing something they call terms of service, which is in violation of my freedom of speech, the First Amendment. You see? You don't say, we could create this Section 203, and this will give you immunity from... No. First Amendment says Congress shall make no law. You say abridging, right? Freedom of speech. So there never was a law passed because what has to happen is it's an amendment. And I always bring back, and see, this is what I'm trying to tell you. Everything you know is wrong, and you don't know what you don't know. All right? But stick with me for a second. I've said this before, but this bears repeating, definitely bears repeating on Election Day. When we had Prohibition, which was in the early part of the last century, people weren't allowed to drink alcohol. It was illegal. They passed an amendment to the Constitution because they knew that was like, everybody drank. I mean, the Founding Fathers were distillers and brewers. Literally. Jefferson, Washington, and they were all drinkers too. Right? So, and the country, that's people drink beer and wine and, wine has been goes back. So the Sumerians had, they found on clay tablets 6,000 years ago, recipes for beer, brewing beer. Okay. And wine, is listed, people drinking wine thousands and thousands of years ago. Okay. So they knew that in order to basically ban, basically one of the most basic parts of human life, right? In other words, drinking beer and having glasses of wine, or distilled spirits, even as they came along, were a part of human existence, human life, human diet, human. It was just part, like it or not, it doesn't matter. It's just the way it was and has been, always been. So they go, we can't just say you can't drink. We're going to have to pass an amendment to the Constitution that says, it's prohibited, prohibition. And that was that's when Chicago became, bang, bang, shoot them up, all that stuff. And Chicago's never recovered from that because that whole crime setup, Al Capone and all that stuff. I mean, that infrastructure and the infrastructure of the speakeasies and all these, the U.S. underground. A lot of people don't know this because nobody talks about this. This is what the teachers should talk about, but they don't talk about this stuff. Like the real history, how things work, how things happened, right? Common sense, like I say, things. And it was Prohibition that basically created organized crime to the extent that it grew and flourished and now is completely out of control and unstoppable. All right, and has invaded the corporatocracy, government. The corporatocracy is basically run by an organized crime syndicate, basically. And so the only way, but let's go back to Prohibition, but the only way to get rid of that, according to the Constitution, and they knew they had to because it was just, they realized they created a monster and it was out of control. And the people were going, hey, man, we've been doing this for thousands of years. You can't just tell us we can't have a glass of wine, arrest us, and, and say you can't drink beer, drink a glass of beer after work or something, right? It's just, remember, it's just like people who abuse drugs or prescription drugs or something. That has nothing to do with the fact of the matter of somebody who's in pain. You don't, just because some idiot, and the word idiot, moron, idiot, doofus, is like, oh, I'm going to take, I can't take it anymore, so I'm going to abuse alcohol and drugs. You don't change society because of some moron, right? You can offer help to that moron, and we've got more counseling, more services, toll-free numbers, hotlines, counsel centers, then charitable organizations, government-funded things for people like that. And those people just ignore it. Some seek help, right? Because they have a mental disorder or something, and they realize it, and they seek help, or their family helps them. But that doesn't mean we have to change our lifestyle, and they take away drugs that work. And I know people firsthand who have had pain problems, okay? That chair just keeps sinking down, and the shirt pulls up in the neck, and it's like I'm a little person, right? I was going to buy this thing, but this catalog's I think I threw it away. No, the catalog's in my garbage can. I was going to buy one of these chairs on time payments, like one of these. Dude, I'm just tired of doing that, up and down and up and down. And this microphone. Well, anyway, but I know people that because of the conditions they've put on these drugs, like antihistamines, you have to buy, show ID, right? If you have a really bad sinus and you need an antihistamine, you have to show ID over, to the pharmacist in order to get some of these high-end, nasal sprays or things that really work. I think there's these little red. I used to take them when I was in, when I used to get colds. I don't get colds or flu anymore. But in college, when I was in college, I remember, once a year I'd get the flu or a cold, runny nose type of thing. And I forget the name brand, and it doesn't really matter. But anyway, I think it's either the sprays or this name brand pill, whatever it was. It was just an antihistamine. It was nothing weird. You took it, and it really dried your nose out. And it was better, while the sprays work better, because they deal with they mess with, how they open up the passages, but the problem is that if you take them for too long, then things want to condense and you have trouble breathing. So you need to take the pills, But anyway, one way or another, people use these to make crank or something. Okay? They discovered people were making some kind of thing like that. But, people will always find something to make a thing, and they do. So you have to show ID and all that stuff to get basically a nasal decongestant. Because that's all these things were. And for years, like I say, I used them, and they were good. And there were a couple of these brands were really good. And you took them for a couple of days, and, you had a cold, and that's it. And it was good, especially when you were in school or at work. Because, you can't, when you used to get those colds, you can't, like I do it here, but it's like, I look like I'm I'm basically cleaning my mustache off from coffee. That's all it is. It looks like it's a big deal, the legendary white handkerchief. But when you have that kind of cold, your nose is running, and this thing would be, like, I don't gross you out or not, but this would be sogging wet. You know what I'm talking about? If you used a handkerchief. Either that or you'd have like a box of, guys would have like a roll of toilet paper on their desk or in their dorm room, or you'd have like a box of tissues. If you were so lucky to be able to afford a box of tissues instead of stealing a roll of toilet paper out of the bathroom. When they caught a cold, because you would get that runny nose thing. And you would just take these antihistamines, would stop the nose from running. And if you got bed rest, took a couple aspirins or something like that, the cold would pass in, 48 hours, a few days. And that was it. And so you were able to go to class without your nose dripping, or you could go to work, your job, and you could function at your job like a normal person, right? Be at a meeting and not be like 17 times during the meeting wiping your nose. Because it was more of wiping the nose than blowing your nose, because the thing would just drip, 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 drip. Okay, so now you have to go through show ID because of some doofus morons, right? And I say, screw them. Let those morons kill themselves with whatever they want to do. And it's the same with these oxycodines and all that other kind of stuff. There's some people, and I know some people who I've seen who are very elderly. All right. And they're bent over and could hardly walk. And it's so hard. Like even myself, there's because of legislation and stuff and the abuse of these drugs, right? See, the government's job isn't to like protect some morons who abuse something. All right. The government's job is to run government. Okay. And so because of that, they won't give certain people, these elderly people, pain pills. See, it wouldn't even matter if they became addicted to them. If they were that, because some of these people are on their way out. I hate to say it. It's, in other words, it doesn't matter when you reach a certain age, it doesn't really matter. You don't want to be taking it, you don't want to be on some kind of like prescription drug as a younger person. Because it's going to mess with your liver, kidneys, who knows? You're going to become dependent on it. But when you're towards the end of your life, so what? Do you see what I mean? It's not like you're suddenly going to like be renewed, Come on. The mortality rate or age is it's like 77 now or something like that, in the US. So anybody over the, the expected age of death, should be allowed to have any prescription drug they want. And even if they're lucky enough to live into their 90s and stuff, so what? At least they're not living in pain. But to say to them, oh, you can't have this oxycodone, you can't have this antihistamine, or you can't, it's like, well, who are you to say that to that person? It's about this person has a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And life, liberty, freedom, okay, and the pursuit of happiness is a quality of life, right? Because you're not happy if you're like bent over, lame, and in pain, right? So it's not the government's purview. It's not their mission. They're not tasked with telling you right? Which even gets into this thing that's been going on for over 2.5 years now, right? The bioweapon thing. It's like they're not tasked with that. That's not their job. It's not in the Constitution. It's not in the Bill of Rights. Well, anyway, so in order to get rid of prohibition, to get back to stay on point, they had to pass an amendment abolishing the previous amendment. Now, there has been no amendment to the Constitution abolishing the First Amendment, right? Now, if the Democrats or these Republicans or whoever, these wackos in Congress, if they want to basically take away, the First Amendment, which says Congress shall pass no law abridging freedom of speech, right? Then they could pass an amendment to the Constitution that says Congress may from time to time, you use that kind of language, Congress may from time to time pass laws that abridge freedom of speech and the right of people to assemble. In effect, they could pass a law like they did with the prohibition, when they abolished prohibition. They could abolish the First Amendment or parts of it. But they haven't, and that's the only way you can get rid of it. So when I say the Constitution giveth and the terms of service taketh away, right? It's laughable in a sense. And this is why I say, well, game over, right? Because people just sit by and they just accept that, right? They don't, or they don't know any better. Like you don't know what you don't know, or everything you know is wrong. That's why you should be wearing every one of those 4 slogans on the top of, on the screen here. I have a shirt, a hoodie, a bag, mug, you could get any of those on there. Go to TonyGaravanLive.com or ROCKFLUX.com. You should be wearing those or having those. You could even get stickers, I think, for some of those things. And the point is that big tech is in violation of the First Amendment. See, Section 230, so to speak, whatever they call this thing, like saying that they're immune to this and they can ban you or censor you, and as if this isn't the public square, just like what I was saying, the airways are the public airwaves, all right, is bullshit. It's a violation of the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law doing it, so they cannot empower big tech companies to do it. Okay, end of story. I told you that before. Think about that. It's the truth. But you don't think about it, and you don't care, and you're going to forget about it like somebody who's suffering from dementia. All right? That's the first sign of dementia. So it's like not only does the President of the United States have signs of dementia, clearly, clinically, right? I watched a doctor go through that yesterday in a presentation. And they're clear signs of dementia. But I think half the American people have dementia. You don't have to be 80 years old or late 70s or whatever to get it. You could, I think half the people, I think people in their 20s have dementia. I mean, it's either that or they're so indoctrinated or conditioned. I think the word is, forget indoctrination, because that's a trigger word for people to think, oh, conspiracy theorists. Conditioning, I mean, another word for that is brainwashing, and propaganda. But let's just use a clean, sterile word, conditioning. They're conditioned by spending approximately a third of their life in these indoctrination centers, basically the school system, which they don't need. You need about 6 years of school if they did it right. I've got answers for everything. I'll tell you how to do everything. And today's show will be the show that will tell you everything you need to know and everything that can be done instantly to make the world perfect. And you don't have to pass laws. Okay. So now let's look at, which is also big tech, the cable companies. You may or may not be aware of this, but the cable companies, there's competition among cable companies, all right? People that provide television, and internet services to you, okay? And the city council votes on that, and they award a franchise, okay? So they say, okay, Comcast and such can operate within our borough, township, city, whatever, whatever the structure is, however some incorporated village, is set up. And they are supposed to have these public access channels. That's part of the mission, right? That they're supposed to provide in turn for the government, the people. Because remember, the government these people aren't separate from us. Like Joe Biden isn't better than you. All right? They're not separate. It's the people. And the people take turns. It's like in Congress. That's why there's these old fogies that are in Congress too. It's like it's supposed to be a rotation of the people, right? You're not supposed to be in there for 40 years, because things change, and so you don't want some person in there that's out of touch with contemporary, I don't know, social mores or whatever. I don't know. Just culture, even. So they're supposed to provide, and you probably know what I'm talking about. So in some cities, they actually have public access TV still, and there's people you go on, you could sign up on a list, and you can go on there, and I could be on public access TV at 2 a.m. in the morning doing this show. Hey, friends, don't forget, viewing again here on public access channel 200 and whatever. So a lot of them just decided, well, screw that. Some of them have these things that are like community bulletin boards, right? You see a lot of that around the country. It's this flashing thing. There's a bake sale at such and such, There's a meeting of the such and such at such and such, and they're playing some local radio station, somehow has like weaseled their way in to get to be on there, right? So they can show that they have bigger ratings or something. It's all a game, man. It's so political, bureaucratic. It's all underhanded, dirty, corporatocracy, organized crime syndicate crap. So let's get back to Vote Goat. So it's election day. Now, all the things I've said over the past 38 minutes, let's pull them all together. And here's how you change the election system in a couple of days, right? Right. You have public access TV, all right? It comes over, So you set up a camera in your election places, right? And especially today now with Wi-Fi, right? And most of the cable providers and television providers, they all have that. So it's not like you have to do anything, special. You could even upload it through cell phone. In other words, it's just like doing a broadcast. Like I could be doing this live through my cell phone if I wanted to, right? So there's no technology, no major expenses here, all right? So there's a camera in the voting centers. And in places where you have lots of voting centers, you could have them flip, right? Here's Ward 2. And you could be on counting the votes, in the voting thing, Ward 2. And these people will never know. There won't be the red light on when it's like, that's the deal. The red light gets taped over. So they don't know when they're being watched or not being watched. And when they're on or the red light's on constantly because it is constantly. It's just a matter of it's back at the station, you know, it's not even the station. It's just the way, it's an algorithm. It's basically going to randomly circulate through these various things. And it would be random too, so people couldn't figure out the timing, right? You know, in other words, because these bureaucrats and these cheaters, they're smart. They're like criminals who are trying to rob a bank, and they go, look, or rob some business. They go, well, the security guard comes by, you know, they stake the place out, right? You've seen this in movies, right? They stake the place out. They say, the guard comes by at 10:20, and then he'll make his rounds, and he won't be back until 10:50. Okay, so you've got to get in and out before he comes back around, right? And so these cheaters, these election, you know, dirty bureaucrats, right? They would go, look, they would have somebody watching, you know, the cameras, you know, over the public access TV. And they would say, hey, look, they're on Ward 2 now, so they won't be back to, you know, to our area for another 15 or half hour. So, you know, stuff the ballot box now. No, so it has to be random. So you never know. And so the thing just switches and switches and switches. Okay, so people could sit at home and watch that and know that, that's transparency. Okay? Now, that's no big deal because they already have cameras set up at those places. They just don't, like, show you that stuff, right? Because that's how we learned. Remember on TV, they were showing us video from those cameras. See, they do have the cameras, but they, like, destroy the footage. You know? It's like, it's footage for what? Right? You know? But luckily, the footage that did come up that showed people doing some fishy things, people said, well, that wasn't really fish. You know, that was like, they tried to apologize, right? Or come up with an excuse. Well, yeah, I guess she was going to go on a flight or something, and that's why she had a suitcase. She brought a suitcase to the poll with her and had it hidden under a table and brought it out at 3 a.m. Because the next morning she was going on a vacation. And she hid it there so it wouldn't be in people's way. Whatever. So you know the cameras are already there, so there's no expense. It's just a matter of basically having those things put over public access through the public access channel on whoever's the franchisee. And it would have to be the newspaper and the media would have to have a PSA announcing that. Okay? This election day, if you tune into channel such and such, right? Or for people who don't have TV, who've cut the cord, if you go to, yourtown.org or .gov, you can watch the thing. And at yourtown.gov, they could have every place on one page, all cameras. You see? So it wouldn't even have to be a rotation type of thing because it's the internet. And you could do it from your smartphone. Okay, so the infrastructure is already set up. The cameras are already in place. Just do it. Transparent election. Okay, problem solved. Right? Now everyone goes, hey, you know. And so the people who want to cheat now have to be like really cheaters. Right? Professional, like, you know. Okay? And there's always going to be people like that. It's like bartenders. You know, in bars, bartenders steal money, right? I mean, that's like part of the job. All bartenders manage, you know, most. I mean, some probably don't. But I mean, but they've got cameras right over the cash register. Show every time the cash drawer is open, you know, that's recording that. They've got cameras at different angles and stuff. But these guys still have ways of like messing with the bottles, drinks, taking the cash, the tips, doing something in some way, shape, or form, sleight of hand, type of stuff, right? There's always some real crafty person that's going to beat the system. But so what? That's not going to change an election, and it's not going to bankrupt the bar, whatever, the business, for example. You put in some good security measures. Yeah, there's some people that are going to get away with a few things, but what you're doing is you're preventing widespread, pilferage and and theft. So that's what the purpose of security measures are. So yeah, by putting these cameras and having them broadcast and available for all to see, is going to basically make people, some people who have, a family, a regular job, or they don't want to go to jail, for election fraud or something like that. And the thing should be mandatory, 1 or 2 years in jail, right? If you're caught, ballot stuffing. No, it has to be like when you do drunk driving laws. In other words, you do a certain thing, and there's a certain thing, you get written up for it, and it's like, you can get a really good lawyer, but the best that lawyer, you're still going to serve time for that because that's on the books. You see? You did this, and you're caught, right? The state policeman pulled you over, has the, evidence, whatever. You got the speeding ticket. Now you got to pay the fine. You understand? Or you were drunk driving, you were caught, and they got the breathalyzer thing or whatever. It's on camera, and everything was done on the up and up. They read you your rights and all this kind of stuff. Even a very high end lawyer, is not going to get you off on that. And either way, it's going to be written up in the paper, right? And so your family and the town and everyone, So so even with a good lawyer, if you're caught ballot stuffing or stuff, you're never going to work at a poll again, and you're going to have trouble getting a job because they're going to look at you and go, "You're a cheater. You're not trustworthy." Okay, so that's problem solved number one. That's techno transparency, right? So you think that big tech companies would be into that? No, they don't want to because they've got a vested interest in cheating, being involved in the whole process, right? They want things to work out their way, and the candidates that will look the other way, that won't bring up this idea of like Section 230 or the, terms of service in violation of the First Amendment. In other words, there's nothing that needs to be done. No one need ever be banned, throttled, or anything on any of this stuff. In other words, once this became the public square, right, then everything was out the window. You can't say, oh, these are private companies. Yeah, it's just like, the television stations are private companies, right? And movie theaters are private companies, okay? But you can't yell fire in a movie theater, all right? And as far as I know, in the U.S., you can't do the media. There's still a few things they can't do, like the 7 words they can't say and stuff. Like the FCC still enforces certain things, and they're public companies. But it's like cherry picked now with some of this social media and big tech companies, But remember, First Amendment says Congress shall make no law. And unless you put the only way to get over that isn't passing a law or an amendment or making a Section 230 or whatever the frick FCC wants. The only way of changing a First Amendment right would be to pass another amendment that takes away that amendment, like they had to do with prohibition. Okay? End of story. There is no argument to that. No legal argument. I don't care. Harvard Law, wherever you are from. Okay? Columbia Law. I was up there. I used to do the Columbia Law, help put the Columbia Law School Journal out, produce their paper. I don't care. The smartest lawyers there are. That's a fact. All right? And any lawyer could present that to the Supreme Court. Right? All they have to do is use the prohibition as an example. I mean, you could play games and stuff like that, but it's not going to hold up. But everybody's looking the other way. Okay, that's number one. But what did I start out saying this show with? I was talking about date of birth. And yesterday, for example, I had to give my date of birth several times. And I might have even given my last 4 digits of your social. And I bought, since I had to go pick up the prescription, I bought some, what did I get? Oh, I got some chicken. I got some like chicken that was on sale and a thing of yogurt that was on sale for 65 cents, because it expires on November 3rd. So I had some this morning in my cereal with my oatmeal and stuff. Because as far as I know, you can take it with amoxicillin. There's no food restrictions. Hopefully that doctor wasn't lying. Anyway, so I had to use my PIN number. All right, when I used my card, right? Okay, so it's election day. Now, so you can set up these polling places if you wanted to for people, So this is why the camera thing wouldn't even be a big deal, because you really wouldn't need as many polling places anymore because of this. Okay? And because of this computer. Because what you would do is, all right, you would register to vote online. Okay? See, this costs no money. And they can't cheat. Here's how it works. Here's why. And this is very easy to do. And the big tech companies could do this for you. And they should, be almost like, tasked with doing it as like for the sake of them getting all these things that they're allowed to do that other people can't do. You register to vote on a government website, a secure government website. Okay? Now remember, secure is secure. Secure as it can be. It's possible that somebody could attempt to hack something like that, but that would be the excuse they would use why they wouldn't do this. But the reality is there are certain things that you can't, you can hack, but you can't hack. Like, in other words, it would be obvious. Forget this VPN nonsense and all this kind of crap. It's like I'm trying to say, it's like everything, if you talk to people who know code, you talk to real hackers, all right? It's like the right person, who knows, you could kind of almost hack just about anything. All right. I mean, okay. But the point is, and you could try to hide your trail, and all that stuff. But see, the way is you have to design a system in a singular system. That's like this. You would design it so that the trail is not, is not a factor, and that it's, if someone hacks it, in other words, it's hackable, but if you hacked it, it would be obvious. Do you see? The way you would design the system, because this is just all right. So the way it works, like it would work, and I'm not gonna write code here on the air for you. I don't have enough time. like devise this, and I don't care about it because I say vote GOAT to begin with. I'm just telling you what they could have done, but they won't ever do this. All right, here's how secure this system would be and why everyone over the age of 18 could vote. All right. If you if you have a smartphone, which most people have, even the poor get a free smartphone. Okay. You would download this app. Okay. Voting app. Vote. Right. Vote.gov or something. Right. From vote.gov. Or it would, or like they have this power to do it, which people aren't aware of. It would just appear on your phone. Like, remember, like these emergency things, like when there's like an alert thing, just like suddenly your phone's like lists this. They could just put it on everybody's phone, right? Remember, Section 230, they don't care, right? Or you could opt out and say, I don't want the app, and you will go to a voting booth, all right? Which will have the camera and will be broadcast, and you could watch what's going on there. My chair's systematically going down again. I'm so tempted to get this chair, but it's like the right chair is like a couple of $100. And I'm learning that this, now that I have to like redo this surgery probably, or redo this, or go to this oral surgeon, the money I gave to that quack who cheated me and lied to me, I'm going to be paying the same amount or more to go to another person and have what I originally went to get done. So I don't know, the money for the chair is going to be spent on the dude. So anyway, you or you just go to vote.gov, register your name, right? Your social security number, all right? And your where you're voting. You're voting your county, that kind of stuff. Township, whatever. And you you put your email in there, your email address, your personal email address. Now you get an email, all right? So you have to verify your email. How many times have you had to do that, right? So that verifies that email is sent to you and it's your email, and that, so someone can't like just register in your name. And if they did, you would have to register 30 days before or something like that. And if you tried to register and it said you're already registered, then there would be a place you would click, and then that would be it. They would find that person. See, hacking is a two-way street. So then the people who worked for vote.gov would follow that chain, that chain of IPs, and see who registered in your name. All right? And if it was some ridiculous thing, like people are saying, well, what if the Russians would do it? Well, if it came into some weird thing, like it seemed like it came from Ukraine, which is like where it really comes from. Russia doesn't do it. Most of the hacking comes from Ukraine and the communist Chinese, right? Those are the two big hackers. And then in that instance, you might actually be sent a ballot, or you might actually say you have to go, you would have to go and vote again, or they would invalidate the fraudulent one and register you again under, properly, because they now know you're real and that other one wasn't. You see? So there's a couple of easy ways of doing that, and it can almost be done algorithmically. It's not like it requires some hiring 10,000 employees. This could all be done through software, more or less. With a team, Okay, so you get a return email and you validate that it's you. And so now it's like, how many times have you done this, right? And it's like online banking and stuff. Sometimes when I try to log on my bank, the phone rings and says, and gives me a code number, and I have to like put that in order to access my banking. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but they do that as a security measure randomly sometimes, right? Especially like if you install a new operating system or something like that, it seems like the algorithm is set up to see that this isn't the normal place he logs on to check his bank thing. So this may be a whatever, right? So they'll call you or text people, right? Okay, so voting, so you're registered now under your name, email, you verified your email, and you were given a law, so you can go. So now you want to vote. It doesn't have to be voting day, but should be voting day, I think. I think election day is the idea. I don't think there should be a week, or a month or 30 days in advance. You could register in advance, but you should vote on a day, and the results should be known, by 7 p.m. All right? That's it. And what's in computerized, they would be known instantly. Right? So when you vote, when you're given, when you verify your email address, you're either texted or emailed, or you're assigned somehow, or you not even assigned, you come up with a PIN number. And so when you vote, you just put in that PIN. And so you put in the last 4 digits of your social. You've already had your email verification sent to you. If there was a conflict, some hacker from some other country or somewhere around, some domestic guy or girl was trying to hack in, you challenge that. That's in the system as a challenge, and they verify with you through your social security, through your numbers, because no one's going to, this fraudulent person isn't going to be able to answer the phone. See, that's why I'm saying they're going to call you, right? Like the bank calls you. And you're going to answer the phone, so they're going to know you're the real person. Then they're going to give you a number, and you're going to have to punch in that number to double validate, right? It's like, what do they call it? Two something authentication, right? That kind of thing. 2-factor authentication or something like that. You have that for a lot of things. You can opt in to do that for certain things. So you have this 2-factor authentication on these challenges. And so when you vote, you've got your personal email number, your phone number. They can text you. You have to, and when you decide on who when you're voting on the ballot, you have to submit that. You have to submit your last 4 digits of your social, right? Your date of birth, right? Your PIN number, right? And 2-factor authentication before it's final. And you're voting. And it may sound like it's more complicated than it is. It's not that complicated, because part of it's just done when you register, which is pretty easy, and it all depends on the GUI, the graphic user interface, and how they set it up so that it's easy. Easy as pie. It's a simple screen, registration screen, right? And it just comes to you. Okay, so anyone who votes in person has got a camera on them, and anybody who's counting ballots at the places where they that haven't voted, the majority of people will just vote from their cell phone, right, or their home computer. But anybody who wants to go and do it the old-fashioned way, they're going to have cameras on that on the voting centers and the tallying of those votes. Done. Basically, 90% of the people or more of voting age could vote. See, they don't want that, though. See? They only want the people that they can manipulate to vote. So they can game the system. And that's why they avoid the idea of using computers. In this high-tech world, with all this stuff, last 4 digits of your social. Date of birth, please. You use it every day at an ATM machine, every day when you check out at a store, grocery store, pharmacy, or retail place, Walmart, right? You're putting in your PIN, right? That system seems to work pretty good for that, right? And you add like a 2-factor or whatever it's called, authentication, and a verification of an email, and something like that where it's sent to you, an automated phone call that's just algorithmically set up, because when the bank calls, it's not a person. It just, the phone rings, it automatically dials the number on thing, and it says, your code is 4 3 9 9 0 1 8, right? Press something. To hear again, press such and such. And you put in that number. It's almost foolproof. And like I say, the type of person that could do it, they can't. Someone say, well, what about getting to the servers after the fact? Right? Well, no. Because, see, the whole idea is that this is instantaneous. That's why you can't spread it out. In other words, it's done on election day. Everybody votes on election day. That's why election day was set up. You don't give them the chance to cheat. You see? The votes are tallied as they're tallied. And they're done at 7, and 7 o'clock, everything's all done. Nobody could go into a server and change the votes. And anyone who would be, some shyster, cheater, bureaucrat, crazy political machines, right? Where's that? Broward County and places in Chicago and that area in Philadelphia where they, they're notoriously been caught cheating. People have gone to jail already for it. Those type of places, they'll probably try to do some stuff, but they'll be so scrutinized that like the guy who ended up going to jail for cheating and stuff like that, they'll get caught. Because this would be nearly foolproof. And it'll all be decided by 7 p.m. so that you're not going to get into some server thing. And besides, the technologies, what people don't understand is that the government has some pretty sophisticated technologies. Right? And so that's that. Anyway, so we don't have that system. Okay? Right? And it's not likely we're going to have that system. And the First Amendment isn't going to be enforced with big tech. Okay? So my advice to you is vote GOAT. Right? Or don't vote. Right? Why? It's an exercise in futility. Yeah. And I'm sorry. And that's why I'm not political. Because the system, you can't trust the system. They don't have a system. The system may be fair and just and right. It's possible. But it's highly suspect. And there's too many places and opportunities for fraud and cheating. So the idea is the outcome could be correct, but as far as I'm concerned, I can't trust it. Right? It's like somebody, it's like when you have somebody who's not trustworthy or is highly suspicious, right? You're suspicious of them, right? And you're not going to trust them like to babysit your child or, hey, here's the keys to my car, watch my car while I'm on vacation or something. Or here's the keys to my house. Could you, feed my cat, and you're going to let this person be in your house while you're away for a month, if this is like some suspicious character. So there's, and that's the system we have right now. It's very highly suspect. Now, it may not be, like I say, it may be, fairly accurate. But it's highly suspect, the suitcases, putting big, piece of cardboard over glass and doing stuff in the dark of the night when, and all that stuff. It's just suspicious activity. And so, they tell you elsewhere, report suspicious activity, right? So it's like, there's so much suspicious activity that goes on that it's highly suspect. So that's all I'm saying. So they could easily remedy the system like I just told you by just implementing the same thing they do with software programs and, this two-factor authentication, the way banking systems, way online banking works and, that sort of thing. Like, we have a technological remedy to this, right? That I think would be less suspect. Like possibility of some meddling and stuff. Yeah, possible, but, less likely, and I would trust it more. Okay, so that's that. Election day, vote GOAT, What did I say? If you vote GOAT, vote GOAT. Vote GOAT, vote GOAT. Nobody's watching. 7:22 a.m. All right, let's get into the rest of the show. So,
the Weather Watch forecast.
All righty. Here's the this morning's NOAA CONUS low Earth orbit satellite view of the former United States. And as you can see, it's almost like a jet stream coming across. And the temperature, like for example, where I am, I mentioned this yesterday, the outside temperature here, it's 39 degrees outside. 39 frickin' degrees where I am. And it's only going to get up into 40s today, low 40s, mid 40s maybe. Overnight, this week we're talking about Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 27 degrees overnight. Sunday it gets just over freezing, right? Because, think about that. So there's some rain and snow expected. In fact, in not too far from where I am, up to 1 inch of snow is possible. And obviously, probably, and I haven't checked, like Tahoe and places like that, but I'm sure there's, in the Northwest, the mountainous areas, I'm sure there's snow in some of the higher elevations. This was predicted in early winter. We're in grand solar minimum, and, just look at where you live, and you can see if you're going to be subject to rain, a cloudy day, or the possibility of a mix of rain and snow. This time of year, the ground is still hot enough. Yesterday was sunny here, so even if there were snow, it wouldn't stick. You'd see some on the grassy parts, but that would dissipate fairly quickly. But when you have, days that are only in the low 40s and consecutive nights below freezing, which, a lot of the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, Great Lakes area and stuff is going to experience, and in the higher the plains, the northern and part of the country, the northern latitudes. Like I say, as the conveyor slows down, the northern latitudes will just be getting colder and colder. And, and that's it. That's the facts.
The Weather Watch forecast.
And, to put that into perspective and just to add to it, this is the latest picture from La Palma, from a Spanish site. And, they're talking about lava is going into old lava tubes are being filled now. Over 2,500 homes destroyed. It's still spewing. This thing started in like September 29th or something like that, end of September. And now we're into the first week of November. And, we're talking about, really sulfur dioxide, really toxic chemicals shooting up, and ash going up every day. And as I've mentioned before, that there are other volcanoes going off around the world. And so when you take the slowing down of the Atlantic conveyor, you take this constant, ash being, jettisoned. I mean, the force. I was watching live last night. I turn on a couple times because like I say, YouTube's the thing I watch. And I went to the live, camera of the volcano last night a couple of different times, just in between things. And I was watching this lava just shoot up like a gas jet, And like I say, what you don't see, is the dust, the ash that's being shot up. And like I say, you multiply this happening on practically every continent, and it looks like there's some, I was noticing that there's a lot of earthquake activity, like swarms of earthquakes on various volcanoes that haven't erupted yet. But usually when they have swarms, even in the U.S., when you get those swarms of earthquakes, if they don't dissipate, it could be a sign of, not always, but it could be a sign that there's an eruption is imminent. Freaking chair. So, you take that and you add grand solar minimum, and then you add the weakened magnetic field of the Earth. And you have to understand that the weakened magnetic field is our force field. It's a shield. It's a force field, like in sci-fi. All right? So what happens is when that's weak, that allows in these cosmic and even solar rays, but the ones you don't want in, and they go into the Earth because the Earth there's a lot of liquid in the Earth. That's where this lava is, right? It's molten lava. And so that is allowing that to heat up, and it's, so this isn't going to end anytime soon. So we can expect more volcanoes, right? More ash in the Earth. It looks like the conveyor could well stop, but it's definitely slowed down, and that's been reported in peer-reviewed, journals. And we definitely are heading into a grand solar minimum. So put it all together, and it spells, and we're cooling, and we have been cooling. And a guy like me who does the weather every day and literally looks at the satellites, okay, and watches other parts of the world, okay? All right? Do you understand? I'm not making this stuff up, right? And our star is like, is going through a cycle where we're, it's looking more and more like that thing's going to like, boom, shed its shell. And that's going to happen sometime, probably. I hope it happens. I don't hope it happens at all. But I mean, I hope it happens. I was to say, I hope it happens in my lifetime, because I hope I live that long because of the frickin', the tooth. This ongoing saga. Such a pain, man. Such a pain. Just can't believe it. So anyway, let's take a look at the news. This is kind of comical. This is Google News, so I'm not making this up. This is just random Google News. I haven't gone there for a long time, so this isn't customized. You see, they're downplaying the thing. They just have C coverage of the latest, whatever, of the thing. that's been going on for like 2.5 years now. It basically defies logic. All right, here we go. Trump slams Biden for appearing to fall asleep during climate summit speeches. And the thing is, I did happen upon a couple of those images, and it's pathetic. I mean, it's pathetic. It doesn't matter if you're political or what. If anyone ever uses the word leader of the free world again, all right, it's the most embarrassing thing in the world. Here's, you know what I mean? It could be cute if it's your grandfather, or somebody, right? Falling asleep on the chair. My dad used to fall asleep on the chair. You get to be a certain age, and you have a full day and stuff like that. And after you eat, digestion sometimes, you'll like kind of snooze off for 15 minutes. It's happened to me, But I mean, this is, that was pathetic. And so, it's interesting how they look at, I just want to point out something here. See, because I'm not political, but I want to show you how people are political. Listen to the words here. Okay. All right. NBC reporter says Biden's apparent nap is political obstacle, reminds viewers he keeps long hours. They're making an excuse for him. Okay. Here's Yahoo News. Biden appears to doze off. Appears to. They had close-ups of it. His eyes were closed. The guy next to him basically had to wake him up at the end of the speech. Right? Fox News. Biden arrives at climate summit. That doesn't mean anyway. New York Post. Biden appears to nod off. Appears to. He didn't appear to. He fell asleep. His eyes were closed. There's close-ups of it. The guy next to him had to wake him up right before, at the end of the speech, so he could applaud or something. It was like, I mean, these things are caught on video. These are broadcast worldwide, right? And then, down here, Biden to announce tougher regulations on methane emissions from oil and gas productions. This is why, okay. Look, man, did you see what I was just trying to tell you? Forget this climate crisis thing. The planet is cooling, and the only way that we're going to have heat in the northern latitude is through carbon-based fuels. And the only way, they're talking about deforestation. The only way the forests are going to be renewed is if we keep the CO2 levels high, right? Because trees breathe CO2, and the planet is green because of CO2. And they, in turn, give us oxygen. And likewise, the crops that we need to eat require CO2. So 0.004 CO2. And like I say, take it from a guy who's looking at the weather every day, all right, for years and years and years, who's been on the internet and I used to have a webcam back in the 90s. Like, they blocked all that stuff. You used to be able to like tap into the stations, the weather stations, and they were reporting, and you put in this code into this app I had. I don't know what it was, webcam something or other like that. And I used to have it coming from my server because I have my own server, all right? Because you have to have your own server. So I could do that. And so I've been basically for the past 25 years monitoring this stuff. And so the stuff that they're telling you on the news is like, I don't know where they're getting it from, but it's fantasy. All right? Volcanoes spewing ash into the atmosphere cools the planet. All right? The Atlantic conveyor slows down, cools the northern latitudes. All right? So grand solar minimum is a cooling of the Earth. Right? A weakened magnetic field heats up magma, means you're going to have more of that. Now, when you have, then they talk about ice melt. And what they're finding is, because of the weakened magnetic field, there's geothermal activity. And this has been proven down in Antarctica and the same up in Greenland, in the northern areas. In other words, this heating of this magma, even where you don't have a volcano, is causing geothermal heat. All right? Which is heat rises. Remember, this is like a child could understand this if they would just explain it instead of trying to propagandize it and make and fabricate some crazy story. Heat rises. If there's ice above that heat, that ice is going to melt. That's the end of story. That's the climate story in a nutshell. There's no retort to that. There's no retort to it. It's a fact. We've studied the people who study the planet for millennia. All right. When supervolcanoes have gone over, there's been years of ice ages almost. But what we're experiencing is we're going to experiencing almost mini ice ages. And we remember, we're in an interglacial period to begin with. What the average person doesn't understand, and again, they don't teach this or nobody talks about it, that the natural state of this planet is cold, is frozen. We live on a nice world, I hate to say it. But this is an interglacial period, right? North America, 10,600 years ago to 12,000 years ago, was frozen. There were miles of ice. People think that's impossible. You're lying. That's you should be banned. No, that's like history, It's archaeology. It's climate science. It's fact. Right? Now there's two arguments. There's two schools of thought on what happened to why the ice melted and the ocean levels rose. Now, one theory was a comet asteroid hit, part of the western U.S. and Greenland, and that caused this flash flooding, melting, thing. And that's one school of thought. And the other one is the school of thought, the catastrophe theory, the recurring solar nova theory, is that every 12,000 years, the sun has this nova. It's not a supernova. It's not like the end of a star. No, the sun has a nova, and it sheds its outer shell, and it causes a major Earth catastrophe. All right. And it's a near extinction event, and that's due to happen sometime in the next 20 years or so. But it could happen anytime because you can't pin something like that down. When you're talking about that kind of time scale, 12,000 years, 10 to 12,000 years, you can't pin it down to a day, a year, even a decade. So we're due, put it that way. And according to the experts studying this, and there are experts studying this, and you can find a lot of videos on suspiciousobservers.org, Ben Davidson's site. He's got a whole catastrophism or catastrophe series of videos where he spells it out and quotes a lot of scientists and scientific papers, etc. That all the signs are there, that we're there. We're already into it. It's happening. It's already started. It's begun. So we're it's coming. It's just a question on whether or not it's going to be a major Earth catastrophe and a near extinction event, or it'll be, just cataclysmic, whatever. So we're either, staring down at the apocalypse, so to speak, or or just some really craziness for this generation of people, right? In other words, we're looking at Europe and North America getting very, very cold. And for some reason, there's these guys meeting at these climate conferences that are trying to like put the kibosh on using carbon-based fuels, which are the only way Europe and America are going to be able to stay warm. Think of the population centers in the north, right? Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Chicago, right? I mean, there's Buffalo and, there's all these cities, Cleveland, but I mean, Indianapolis. But I mean, the list goes on. Just think about the mega millions of people that are going to be affected by this. We never needed carbon-based fuels more than we need them now. We need CO2 to stay at 0.004 levels, maybe even go a little higher. People don't get it, man. They just don't frickin' get it. So, like I say, these are the signs. And, I could sit here, but there are guys, you can go through, yourself. You can go around the internet and find people who will show you, YouTube. You'll find people giving you photos of other volcanic eruptions and various earthquake reports and all that stuff. There's people who have got their eyes on this, right? But the mainstream media certainly doesn't. And I don't understand why at this time, that when we're staring down the precipice of possible extinction, a near extinction event, that people are messing with us in such a way. In fact, we should be trying to improve the quality of life for every person. Because if we are indeed that close to something that, that's apocalyptic, don't you think that they should be doing everything we should all be doing? I shouldn't say they. We all should be doing everything we can to live in harmony and to improve the quality of life for every person here. Because if we're all facing imminent death. I mean, that's a sobering thought. And meanwhile, you got the media focused on elections as if some political person is going to make a difference. Think about it. Why are we in the situation we're in? Right? And how has any politician done anything? So, vote GOAT, man. Vote GOAT. By the way, here's a picture from my grow room. And again, I've told you before, the colorization on this is basically because I've got grow lights on and I've just tried to adjust the color. And I wanted to be fair and honest here to show you some failures. So these are some crop failures. There's three things here. I had catgrass that was supposed to be growing in the one on the bottom, and that hasn't come up in weeks, and it should have been up by now. So I've got to go back to stage one on that. I don't know what happened. I'll try again. The one that is showing leaves are the radishes that were looking really good early on, but it's not looking good. And on the right is the cilantro plants that are just basically just dying, practically dead. I could probably pick, if I had to make a salsa, I could probably pick, and I will, pick off the stuff from there fresh and top that on top of a salsa and then try to start again. So basically, I just wanted to show you, not everything, I don't have the perfect green thumb. Everything I grow indoors doesn't always exactly work. And these are kind of three of my failures. So I thought I'd share that. Like I say, it's not everything. It's not magic, and even somebody like me who's been doing this for a number of years, it just doesn't always work out. And plants, I don't know. It's strange. Certain, you have luck and you don't have luck. I don't know why. What happened to the catgrass should have grown. So anyway, but I just thought I'd share that with you because that's part of the show. Another feature of our show is the featured album or featured artist. And today's featured artist is Paul McCartney's Venus and Mars album. And, this is Paul and Linder, as he used to say. In an interview, Paul McCartney once said, "I didn't even know Venus and Mars were actually our neighbors." Like, he didn't know. He never went to college. Or I think he did go to college, but he didn't know. He didn't know that. He actually said that in an interview. I wish I still had that. He said, "I just thought it was something like a good line for a song, like somebody would say, 'Hey, Venus and Mars are all right tonight,' as if like, 'Hey, everything's cool.'" That was the way he said it in the interview. "I didn't even know they are neighboring planets." That was pretty weird. He's kind of a strange guy, but he could certainly write a pop song, that's for sure. And has written enough of them. Though he, his later stuff has just been bad. It's sad. It's like politicians. Some people should retire. You quit while you're ahead, right? But anyway, when you go back to like Band on the Run, Venus and Mars, some of those albums of McCartney, Red Rose Speedway, right? That era of McCartney, right post Beatles, is really worth revisiting. And there are some people who don't even know, if you're under a certain age, you don't know that, right? Because remember, 1980 is 41 years ago. All right. So the Beatles basically broke up about 50 years ago. All right. So even a person 50 years old was born when the Beatles broke up. So by the time, so their parents might have had some Beatle records, and so they could have been exposed to that. But I mean, especially somebody 40-ish. The Beatles were like long gone, and, so they would maybe know McCartney because McCartney was producing stuff, right? Remember, Lennon was killed in like, the 70s, late 70s. Forget when it was. I believe that was. I was in college or something. I'm not sure, I could find out. I mean, I don't like to say things I don't know. Let's just check that quick. John Lennon's death, 1980, December of 1980. So yeah, that was 41 years ago. So, even John Lennon, if you're 40 years old, he would have already been dead. So by the time you started listening to, you were your, early getting to be teens, when you start buying records or listening to music and stuff like that, apart from childish crap or Disney tunes or whatever kids listen to. That would have been, if you were born in 1980, it would have been by the time you're 10 or 13, you were already into the 90s, you see? So if you're one of those people, 40 or 50, and you have no idea who you kind of heard the name Paul McCartney, heard the Beatles because, it's just a part of American pop cultural history. I would, or if you're somebody that's older and you remember that, I would say if you remember songs from hearing songs like this on the radio from like Venus and Mars album, Band on the Run, Red Road Speedway, etc. I would recommend you revisit those artists. And like I say, if you've got a music service or one of those voice assistants or whatever, it's worth listening to some of that early McCartney, right? Paul and Linda McCartney, right? And then it was Wings, right? Then he had that band with Denny Lane from, I think he was in the Moody Blues, yeah. Early Paul and Linda McCartney, early Paul McCartney, right? And real early, just the beginning of Wings, right? That's well worth revisiting. There's some very interesting songs in there. I mean, there's always the typical Paul McCartney love song, right? You know, because I mean, he's basically the guy who's had that down to a science. But there's also some real interesting stuff, you know, on there. You know, good musicianship, you know, structures of the songs, right? Some interesting tunes and stuff that didn't even make it to the radio, you know, on all of those aforementioned albums. So yeah, artist of the day, Paul and Linda McCartney, and you might want to start with Venus and Mars or Red Rose Speedway, or Band on the Run is pretty much known, but you know, it's worth taking a look at that. Like I said, I usually just show one album when I'm featuring an artist because, I mean, you know, this guy's got so many, I don't know, who knows how many albums he even has. But anyway, that's it. Worth revisiting. Good, you know, jumping off point, Venus and Mars. So that's pretty much it, you know. And like I say, if you've got one of these things, if you don't have one of these, I just think this is part of the future. Just like yesterday's show, these voice assistants will eventually be more AI oriented. So you'll be conversational with them. This will be the poor man's, you know, where Elon Musk may or may not have those robots, the Tesla robot, you know, the wealthy would have those sort of things, right? That they can converse with and that could perform tasks for them. This is the poor man's robot, just this thing you have in a room or in various rooms. I have two of these. I have one in the bedroom and one in my kitchen. And they are really incredible. The quality of the sound of music and the many tasks that they're capable of performing for you. You know, everything from the most, and it's all voice controlled. See, the concept is voice assistant. The idea that you can ask it, hey, what's the temperature? What's the weather going to be? What time is it? Could you, wake me up at such and such a time? Could you remember, give me a notification of this appointment? Can you play Paul McCartney's Venus and Mars album? You see? And the idea that you can talk, but you can't, it's not two-way. It's command, response for the most part. But once the AI is added to them within the next year or so, right now I think Amazon's up to like 4th generation. But I wouldn't be surprised, and I would hope, I don't know why they hold it back, because like I said, I've already played around with AIs, all right? And they have the ability to have back and forth and to be able to, so they're holding back on the voice assistants. Even Siri and this Cortana or Cortana, however you pronounce it, Microsoft's version, all of them, they're holding back on, they're afraid to make them conversational. And I'm not sure why, right? I'm not sure why. I think they're afraid that people might take away from the sales of the iPhone, or people doing some other kind of thing. Like I say, you have to understand this corporatocracy and how everything's based on their making more money and power, right? Just taking, and getting more powerful, this pyramid of power, right? And so we're deprived of their quality of life, and deprived of the state of technology today, because they have motivations of greed, power, and greed. You see? That's sad, So the pursuit, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is basically like stomped out because the corporatocracy, which is really the government, and this is why, it's an exercise in futility to vote. You might as well just vote goat, because they're stomping out our freedom. And government has become a corporatocracy. Big tech, big data, big pharma, big media, military contractors, central banking system, right? World Economic Forum. These people meeting. Look, Biden's over there falling asleep at meetings about the climate. It's like the least of our worries, because he's in the opposite direction, right? Meanwhile, at home, we're freezing our balls off, right? And they're talking about taking away the only means of heating our homes, right? And keeping the place from getting covered with a mile of ice. It's not funny, They should have had that climate meeting in La Palma on that island and watched that thing spewing up ash, So it's a crazy world, and everything is wrong. It's like every day these things become more and more true. And I just encourage you to buy these shirts and wear this stuff. It's a very unobtrusive way of getting this point across. And like I say, it's game over. All right? We're in weird, strange land. This show has been like haven't done much of this stuff.
This is insane. This is insane.
This is a nightmare. It must be a nightmare.
But yeah, I know people, because they'll watch some who watch this show or tune in for like 5 seconds. They say,
"Did you accidentally inject yourself with some kind of psychotropic agent?"
Or,
"Why are you telling us this?"
That kind of stuff. But meanwhile,
your papers, please.
This is going on in the background by the corporatocracy, and they're trying to change the world.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
I don't know, man. It's crazy. The coffee has reached that point again where it's now colder than room temperature. Oh, I did have one thing. I remember I never like to leave you hanging, and I always something I do on a previous show, I either correct or anyway, I wanted to pull out. I talked about the album cover. Remember we were talking about albums? It was either yesterday or the day before. So this was my album. You see how I have the lyrics on the back, and this was the album graphic I created, and you can see it's an album. This is an album. And so this is on it's a little flimsy, but I would do this on a heavier cardboard. And then, like I say, what I'd like to do is have like a die cut, which is, a hole basically through a heavier cardboard, like an album, heavy as an album. All right. And in that die, this hole, on here somewhere would be this like USB copy of the album, right? It's available for, download. And and like I say, if they wanted to do it, the record companies could even have it so like the songs are kind of locked to you, like you unlock it. In other words, again, anything could be cracked, but what I'm saying is it could be set up so that once you put them on your computer or that thing, you would have this thing, you would have to unlock it with a code, just a PIN number or something. It could be done that way. You put it in and you put your PIN. So you could still use it on another computer. It's your property. You bought my album and you have this USB thing. All right. But even if your computer crashes and you decide to put on a new computer, but you would still have to enter that PIN. That way it's not something that you can't just like email songs to people and stuff like that. In other words, they would be, it's kind of like Apple. When you open up iTunes, you try to put it on another computer, it asks you what's your email and password, right? That's how it works. So it's the same thing. You could do the exact same thing. So it would be secure. But you'd have an album, and this could be, and these are the lyrics to some of my songs. So you could like listen to the album and and look at the lyrics, just relax in your living room or bedroom, and you'd have an album. And if you wanted to, it could be an foldable open up album, which would even be cooler because the thing could be inside. In other words, the cardboard is like kind of cut out, not all the way on both sides. So it's kind of like sandwiched in there, right? So the thing closed and then it's shrink wrapped. So nobody could like just come in a store and try to steal it out. Those kind of security things. And then you can open this up, fold open, like you've seen a double album or fold open album. And in there could even be like a flap or something, because they have they're making albums still. All right. I'm just saying you don't have to have vinyl, and you could have a poster in there, lyric sheets like this. Anyway, that's my innovation and idea that I'm giving free to the world and that I've already done. Like I say, here it is. I printed a bunch of these. My original idea was to autograph these, at performances and give these out, because these are some of my better songs. Game Over, Bigger Than That, Portrait, Bureaucrats, Autopilot, Robots, though I have so many, and some of my newer songs. But it's an album. And, it can be done. People should think about it. In fact, the guys like, Jack White and stuff who are doing vinyl, they should have an option of just, since they've already pressing and have the printing set up or ordering the printing of the album covers, the jackets, you should have the option of having a digital, USB thing in as opposed to a vinyl record, right? Or both. With your vinyl, you should have the option for an extra, whatever you can have included in that, this little, like I say, it would only have to be a real tiny little thing, right? It almost would just be, it'd be like just enough to, like a little circle with the USB connector, just something to put in. It would be very cheap to produce. And I think they already have these like microscopic ones, very small ones. So that's another problem solving thing that, something I came up with that it's not going to go anywhere. Like I say, there's so many things that, I spent my whole life solving problems and innovating things and stuff like that. And that's how I made a living and got to this point, was able to retire early and live a somewhat decent life. I mean, I've had health problems and stuff like that, but that's inevitable. But like I said, I've been well traveled and had like many and many an adventure that most people only dream of. But it's just annoying to see that not more people are doing that, or the people in power they don't innovate. And if they do innovate, the innovation is this greed and power extreme. So I'm all for capitalism in the sense of making a living and people living well and stuff. I mean, yeah, it'd be great, like I said a million times. I've lived in penthouses. I lived on both shores, at the beaches and stuff. But I'd love to have, have one of my songs go platinum and, and move to the beach. Yeah. So it's not like I'm against any of that stuff. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that what's happening is they're holding back technology that's keeping and stomping on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's the part that, disturbs me and is disconcerting in all of that. Because you could have both, right? It's the same thing like I was trying to say with these voice assistants. There's no reason why you can't converse with that. So why are they holding back GPT-3 AI on those things? They could do it. These are billion-dollar companies, multi-billion-dollar companies, in some cases approaching trillions of dollars, or a trillion. It's nothing. When you're at that level, it's nothing. You put a team, on it, right? You put your, the AI team on there. I mean, it's the hottest technology. This is it. AI, VR, AR, right? This is where we're headed. Like I said yesterday, these things are becoming passé. Whether you want to hang on to it or not, go ahead. People hang on to the craziest things, right? You can hang on to that world. I've got an old dial phone here. I've got a transistor radio, an acoustic guitar, and all that. There's an old radio there, old tube radio. Fine. I've got this older computer here that I use here.
Taking you back to the realms and depths of time.
Right? So, yeah, that's cool. But there's no reason why technology is being held back from the average person. And it's not a matter of cost and profits. It's a matter of them being pricks, really. They're being pricks. It's like whatever these people who are going, these summits that they're having, these people are just being downright evil, right? They know what's going on. It's out there for all to see. I mean, for crying out loud, this isn't, it's in the news, This is a NOAA satellite, okay? All right? This is taken from, these photos are taken from government, taxpayer paid satellites that we have out there, okay? This is not, these things are in the news. All this stuff's happening. It's all, they know this more. They know more about the events, and there are basically scientific journals and university professors that are writing papers and publishing stuff way more than what I'm saying that supports this stuff. But there's this crew, these corporatocracy, this organized crime syndicate that are like just have this narrative, and somehow the media has latched onto it. And maybe it's just like I was talking about with like the Beatles or McCartney. These people are only in their 40s, or maybe they're even 50, and they're just simply not aware. It's like I say, in the Johnstown flood, I told on a story a long time ago. In the late 70s, over 2,000 people, it's in my horror story actually, it was 2,200 people died in that flood in the 70s. And around that same time, the cover of the magazine of Time was that, "Are we entering a new ice age?" That was the media back then. And we were having ridiculous floods. And then there was the Dust Bowl when it was so hot that, basically it was the Dust Bowl of the 1930s. And there were other times in the 50s, and, they cherry pick all this stuff. And they don't talk about cyclical climates, and the solar cycles and these various, cataclysmic events and stuff like that. They know all that. They have ice cores, man. They have satellites. This stuff's available to them, right? More so than to me. I'm just, I search and dig this stuff from factual places. In other words, I'm not bringing you, this is a real photo for today because it's later over there. All right. This is a photo that was taken. I got from a Spanish site press, release. Legitimate photo. I'm not like stealing photos like people do on the internet. They just like think everything's free. All right. That's where I got that from. That's from their news. All right. This is Google News. All right. All right. This is a NOAA satellite. It's called CONUS. All right. This was taken this morning of our, North America. This is the sun. All right. Do you understand? All right. So everything, like I say, my shows are the truth, 30 frames per second. Anyway, I guess it's, it's time to go. Buy my stuff, please. Make it a Merry Christmas for me.
Elvis has left the building. Thank you and good night.